I am thrilled to be here today with Dr. Taha Kass-Hout, Director of Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence and Chief Medical Officer at Amazon Web Services. Taha, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for setting aside the time to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Patty.
So, why don't we start a little bit with you? You have a very interesting background. You worked in the government, you worked in private sector, you worked with health systems. Tell us a little bit about your background and also your role and responsibilities at AWS.
Yeah, no, thank you again for having me. My role at Amazon spans bridging tech, science, and medicine in ways that we can help develop the right technology services and also help customers solve their problems. In my current role, I really enjoy working with scientists, engineers, and product managers, but also interface very directly with customers in healthcare, life sciences, genomics, at all sizes, from startups to academia to large Fortune 500 companies, trying to really help solve concrete problems for patients and consumers and health systems, or introduce better ways about how they can operate more efficiently or design better systems.
So, tell us a little bit about your time at the government.
Yeah, so I was before coming to Amazon, I was at the Food and Drug Administration. This was in Obama's second term, where I was the first chief health informatics officer, and my role really there spanned across, how can you really bring innovation and big data and cloud and machine learning into spurring innovation in industry, but also where FDA can move at the pace where uh, how you can assure the safety and efficacy of the products that are on the market in a way that you bring some of these advancement in technologies and the cloud, and help medical reviewers, as well as work very closely with industry, medical device companies, pharmaceutical companies, and digital health companies to be able to help them innovate, yet be able to kind of be able to kind of offer those safe and effective medical products. The last couple of years at FDA, I was a part of the core team at FDA that worked collaboratively with NIH and the Office of National Coordinator on President Obama's Precision Medicine Initiative. And part of that, how we introduced something called Precision FDA. It's also built on AWS, by the way, to help industry better benchmark next generation sequencing, machine learning, and AI algorithms that come into market in ways that use a standard-based approach, how you can ensure, accuracy, reproducibility, but also in a way that can advance regulatory science. I have a unique background being both a clinician. I'm a cardiologist, interventional by training, as well as biostatistician with a lot of depth in applications in population surveillance, clinical trials, and bringing innovation in big data, and whether that's for disease surveillance, for post-market analysis and monitoring. So the whole life cycle from dreaming up something to bring it to reality, to be able to kind of advance those therapeutics. I've done it all, so to speak, and it's really great to be at Amazon, because we would like to think of big problems and how we can solve them for these customers. So the fact that you bring that perspective, understanding those problems, and having the level of depth with these customers to be able then to really kind of work then with the engineers and the scientists we have on our side to help craft the right strategy, but also and really understand how we can go deep on solving those problems for these customers.
And I'd love to go into that a little bit about how Amazon is really helping your customers, specifically in the healthcare space. Before we get into that, I wanted to get your thoughts at a very high level on the current state of AI and ML in healthcare. Now, AI is a somewhat overused term, very loosely used, and specifically in the context of health systems and health plan, but more importantly, health systems, which is the kind of the focus of most of what this podcast is about, and that's where most of my guests come from. What is the current state? Where are we seeing the big wins, where, the hype versus the reality. Can you just give us a quick, your kind of an overall take on this?
I mean, first it's good to understand like what is machine learning, right? I mean, machine learning is a transformative technology. It's probably going to be one of the most transformative technologies we've seen, um, and it's a technology that can use data to build algorithms that allow computer-based systems to generate a model for meaningful interpretation, and for health is also for potential clinical use. And the dust has settled on a number of areas in machine learning. So, for example, natural language processing or natural language understanding, the better algorithms that are really high accurate. So you can imagine for predictions tasks, but also for pattern recognition. If you look at health data, for the major part, that's unstructured data that comes in images, comes in notes, comes in signals. So, and machine learning is really amazing for sequential and unstructured data, that's exactly what sort of the type of data that we encounter in health space. Where we are seeing the most traction, I mean, today, like healthcare life science organizations, as I mentioned earlier, from the largest healthcare providers to the payers and IT vendors to the smallest system integrators and across the globe are applying AWS machine learning services to improve patient outcomes and accelerate decision making. And you saw over the last decade now the digitization of medical records data. We went from something like 15% not too long ago, maybe 5-6 years ago. Some of your data was still in paper charts, where it is today. About 98% of health systems are capturing that in digital form. And with that comes a really amazing business opportunity with this value-based care. So where the health system is really moving more towards the quality of care and the outcomes to be measured, and now you have more data to be able to derive those decisions. And this is where machine learning paired with data interoperability can help uncover ways to enhance patient care, improve outcomes, and ultimately save lives, while at the same time be able to drive operation efficiency to lower the overall cost of care. And by enabling secure access to health data and supporting healthcare providers with predictive machine learning models, we're seeing where clinicians are able to seamlessly forecast clinical events like stroke, cancer, heart attacks, and intervene more early with personalized care and superior patient experience. On the life science companies like pharma and biotech, we're seeing them design better therapeutics, really amazing opportunity right now in fast tracking the drug discovery cycle, something that takes, as we saw with Moderna, like something that takes 10 years, they were able to do in matters of weeks or months. Similarly with, that's on vaccines and now more on even cancer therapeutics and also on medical devices. And what we work on with Amazon Web Services, our cloud. By the way, cloud was invented by Amazon, and that's the form of Amazon Web Service or AWS. I mean, we provide these customers and healthcare and life science organizations with absolutely the broadest and deepest set of purpose-built AI machine learning services on top of most comprehensive cloud. So that includes data storage, security, analytics, compute services, and beyond. And as you saw also with our health AI services, now there are purpose-built services for health industry, such as Amazon Comprehend Medical, that can help analyze and detect information and extract and structure it from medical notes or radiology reports and that sort of thing, such as medications and conditions and medications, and then be able to map it to the right ontology, whether that's SNOMED or ICD or RX norm, and give you full transparency in the accuracy about how we're doing. And so with confidence scores. Amazon HealthLake is how you can store, index, and analyze this massive amount of information at scale and in a matter of minutes. And we have a number of other services as well. And then with consistent data transparency and control to protect patient privacy, we want these customers to be able to make sense of their vast troves of health data while at the same time support their machine learning workloads to make sense of this data. And we are committed to developing fair and accurate AI machine learning services and providing the tools and guidance needed for these customers to build responsible applications, responsible AI and machine learning applications.
Yeah. Now, of course, Amazon, as you mentioned, is a leader in the cloud business, and a lot of healthcare organizations are moving to the cloud, and they're moving to the cloud for a variety of reasons. Uh, Analytics is one of the reasons. It's not, but I'm curious to learn from your experience. Can you talk to us about maybe one or two examples of how healthcare providers have, you talked about the digitization of electronic medical records. It's a very high penetration, almost 100%. And it is dramatic. It's, in fact, in many ways, it's the single largest digital transformation that we've seen in, one of the largest, the digitization of paper in healthcare. And now that's all table stakes, right? So all that information is there. It's all unstructured for the most part, but there's a lot of structured data. Can you talk to us about maybe one or two examples of where your machine learning, capabilities and your tools and algorithms and so on have made a difference, and talk about one or two use cases maybe for the benefit of our listeners?
Absolutely. I mean, so talking about maybe two use cases, one on operational efficiency, which we see a lot of traction machine learning there, and one on the analytics. On the operation efficiency, for example, Harvard Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center uses deep learning models built on Amazon SageMaker. The Amazon SageMaker is our end-to-end product that for developers and scientists to be able to build, train, and deploy machine learning models, but also detect bias in the process or be able to monitor those in the wild. But they were able to optimize the schedule of its 41 operating rooms and align those schedules to improve patient flow in the inpatient settings. But they also use Amazon Comprehend Medical because, as you can imagine, for a regional hospital that are receiving a lot of patients for being referred to that hospital for operations and whatnot, they come with Harry Potter worth of documentations. So to be able to kind of sift through all that documentation, extract key medical terms, anywhere from, comorbidity, prior procedures, even their blood type and that sort of thing. So this is where Amazon Comprehend Medical, a purpose-built service, HIPAA eligible for that understand the context of the medical text and extract these meanings. They were able to use those to identify history and physical sort of information that's really needed before you can go to seek that procedure. So that's one example on how a health system was able to realize operational efficiency in those settings, and that not only translate in dollars saved and scheduled. Schedules are really more aligned between surgeons and patients, but also the benefit to the patients that would have a better experience end to end, and also for the surgeons to be able to have more meaningful schedules. On the healthcare side with analytics, I mean, this is what really we're excited, with the use case with Rush University Medical Center. So we worked with them on with AWS and to create a cloud-based analytics hub using Amazon HealthLake that I just mentioned. I mean, this hub allows them to securely analyze patient admissions, discharges, and hospital capacity in real time in order to provide care to the most critically ill patients. So they are using predictive models around also social determinants of health across the west side of Chicago to help them identify and fill care gaps before they happen. And this is really a great example about how they're able to bring all that information, organize it and index it in HealthLake, and then start layering all these analytics from hot spotting to be able to identify those at risk, and also looking outside the health system to look at additional data sources for detecting social determinants of health, such as census, HIGI, blood pressure monitors in stores and whatnot, and really kind of get more of a complete picture around that population, because they really care about delivering that care base for all of Chicago metropolitan population.
And which health system was this that you mentioned?
This is Rush University Medical
Rush
Center.
University. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great example. You talked about your classic population health management case, care gaps and risk stratification and so on and so forth. But you also talked about all the different data sources, both within the organization and then outside the organization. Now, there's a lot of, well, first of all, if there's anything healthcare is known for, is the fragmented nature of the data landscape, right? So, within an organization, there's silos of data, and then when you start looking at data from outside the organization, whether it's social determinants or genomic data or anything that comes from the outside, give us your, sort of state of the union on how you're approaching this, maybe from an Amazon HealthLake perspective or any other perspective. How are you helping your clients sort through this? The whole plethora of data sources, but also the messiness of, the data sources.
Absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned, while healthcare organizations are capturing huge volumes of patient information in medical records every day, however, this data is really not easy to use or analyze. As a matter of fact, 97% of this information today is not being used at the point of care. This data, as you just mentioned, I mean, it's trapped in, it's unstructured in nature. I mean, it's trapped in lab reports, insurance claims, clinical studies, recorded conversations, x-rays, and doctor notes, and more. And the process to extract this information has been fairly labor-intensive and error-prone, and the cost of operational complexity is a challenge to most of these health organizations. And we're finding is like every healthcare provider or a payer, or even life science company, is trying to solve this problem of structuring the data, because if you do, you can make better patient support decisions, design better clinical trials, operate more efficiently, and even identify population health trends and get ahead. The majority of this medical data today is also stored in various forms and formats and systems that are not exposed through application programming interfaces, APIs, or microservices. I mean, you're really still trying to deal with that. But the impact, you can feel that, I mentioned a couple of examples, one on a population level and how Rush University Medical Center is trying to really accomplish better insights on their population, or Harvard Beth Israel Hospital, how they are, realizing better operation efficiencies, machine learning. But even at the point of care, I mean, today the most widely used clinical models, like predicting, let's say, one's heart risk, are built from commonly available variables with very simple features that are about 10 to 30 data points don't get to the level of truly kind of peeling the onions for these patients. I mean, today, even the most common conditions like diabetes or depression, or for example, of diabetic patients, only 10% of those are similar. So kind of think through the therapeutic options and what's best for the patient. Oftentimes, it takes a while just to kind of get through really just understanding from a data-driven approach what really might work for them, rather than just broad stroke of approach. And today, if you look at patient's medical record, has at least 200, 300,000 data points, including your medical notes. And unfortunately, none of that is used to manage patients or predict their outcomes. And what you want all this data come together in an organized way at a point of care in order to build better and more accurate predictions. And this is really where, I mean, the reason we introduced a couple of years ago Amazon HealthLake, it really just kind of start helping these customers address these challenges by where it helps by storing the information, indexing this information, structuring the data, and organize it in a way that now you can start building better analytics on more information on the patients. And today, as you know, there are standards around being developed by the community for the last 5 to 6 years around the fast healthcare interoperability resources, or the FHIR standard. And FHIR is amazing for for exchanging data in a structured way. It's a really great lexicon or de facto standard for healthcare data. However, if the majority of the data is still unstructured, you still need to be able to kind of go the heavy lift of indexing, instruction, that information. And this is where HealthLake really comes in mind, because we have machine learning model trained to support these organizations to automatically normalize and index and structure this data, and bring this information in a way that creates more of a complete view of a patient's entire medical history. So that way, making it easier for providers to understand relationship with data, disease progression, but also compare to the rest of the population. So it can derive better and increase operation efficiency, ability to use the data to support better patient outcomes, and then bring the power of the machine learning capabilities that we have built on AWS to this kind of problem. So that way you can design better cohorts. You can be able to now design, better dashboards to monitor these patients, compare these patients, but also start personalizing at the individual level, such as predicting disease onset and that sort of thing. And one of the things is when we bring this massive amount of information, the majority of it is unstructured, we use machine learning capabilities integrated within HealthLake that can understand medical context, extract this information from medical notes, for example, and augment the record. And then every data point on the timeline is now then mapped also into the FHIR standard. So that way it can be immensely helpful when you're trying to exchange this information and be able to store it and exchange it.
Now, one part of all of this, is the wrangling of the data, the different data sets, the quality of the data, bringing it all together into HealthLake, standardizing them, normalizing them, making them usable, and then making them, accessible through FHIR APIs or whatever the case may be. The other part of it is the algorithms itself. Now, there is, from all indications, the acceptance of AI algorithms in enabling clinical care, it covers a spectrum. There may be the ones that you mentioned, Beth Israel and Rush and others, who are kind of at the leading edge, and they're fine with it, they accept it, they use it in clinical decision making. There are others who are not there yet. Where do you think is the big gap in the acceptance, and what are some of the issues we need to be thinking about as we start applying AI ML in a healthcare context?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned data quality, and of course, bias comes with that. As I mentioned, I mean, I do believe we're over the hyperbole of what machine learning is, with concrete now applications around natural language processing, pattern recognition, better predictions that you can really do with these algorithms. And we're seeing that across life sciences and healthcare customers that are really benefiting from this. I mean, Moderna is another example, how they were able within 48 hours predict the protein, and within 45 days be able to kind of have a clinical grade vaccines, and in 60 days end to end from when they discovered the protein to starting the clinical trial. By the end of the year, what FDA approved was exactly the same protein to predict the first 48 hours. This is a power of how, not just how you apply machine learning. I mean, they're applying machine learning across the entire end-to-end data strategy, from data annotation to understanding any biases in information, the data wrangling that comes with it, putting all this information together, and lean on machine learning. Like, for example, with healthcare, with the large majority of it is unstructured data. This is why we have Amazon Comprehend Medical, natural language processing, understand medical context, can extract medical entities, and then map those. The data in healthcare not only multimodal but also highly contextual. There are codes, like diseases have certain standards, like ICDs, drugs, whether that's generic or branded, and all the formulary around them. There's an RX norm standard around this. So also help machine learning trained, purpose built and also pre-trained to understand this information and understand the context, that this is a family history, this is negation, here's anatomy. Structure that information now where you can really, with full transparency, into score about the information extracted and the relations. This condition comes with this medication with this route comes with this sort of dosage and whatnot. Where really removing a huge heavy lift for these customers in order for them to structure this information in the first place. But with that comes, really need to look at, when we talk about machine learning and AI, is look at that as an end-to-end data strategy, from the data prep to when you build those models to when you deploy those models, and then when you monitor those models in the wild. And there's no one model that you can put out there and expect it's going to work forever. I mean, these models do degrade. I mean, just take one machine learning model, let's say working on assistant radiologists in one hospital, train on one data set, take the same model across the street to another hospital, suddenly it's not working.
Yep.
And health system acquire a lot of hospitals. You acquire one hospital that's using, let's say, an old coding system of ICD-9 instead of ICD-10, and suddenly your sepsis model no longer works. So these are technical biases that comes in the data. But and this is really where, I mean, so if I'm just kind of take it from the top, you know, we at AWS are committed to developing fair and accurate AI machine learning services and providing the tools and guidance needed so that way these applications are done responsibly in the first place. And this is really where we're making a lot of material investment across the entire data journey, in democratizing machine learning to the masses at scale, and also ensuring that data privacy. If I'm to break this down into some components, I mean, first, detecting the bias. If I'm to you know, refer to that as data drift. I mean, biases are imbalances in data or disparities in the performance of these models across different demographic groups. So this is also where area where machine learning really is tremendous and help mitigate the bias by detecting potential bias during the data preparation or data wrangling. And then after modern training and in your deployed model, so as you examine specific attributes, I mean, so you'll be able to understand, break the black box. These are the features went into those models. These are the features influencing the output. These are features could be potential in the output, but you haven't looked at. Because not every feature that goes in the model is a predictor. Some of there's contamination. So these can be where you can start having different kind of biases in the in the output. So just kind of give you the full transparency end to end, and then of course the monitoring. And this is where the human review is so important in this process. Understanding model behavior. Once you develop it on a subset population, which is, I mean, very common in healthcare today. If you come up with a new drug, you design a clinical trial. You're not going to design a clinical trial on everyone in the population in the world. You design that clinical trial, and then on that population that you controlled for every variation and variable, then you put it out in the world, and then that's when your post-market surveillance starts. You need to monitor for adverse events and other things. So, but imagine now you have all the tools necessary working for you, and this is really what we package. Amazon SageMaker with these features like Amazon Clarify to understand this bias early on, be able then to monitor these models. And with machine learning, you don't design one or two models. I mean, typically you build hundreds, thousands of these models until you get to the best performing one, like a leaderboard. And then even then you have to continuously monitor because the data is going to drift, the model is going to drift as you apply, let's say, your heart failure prediction in one population or one hospital, try to take another region, different kind of construct of the population. You need to be able to constantly iterate in an agile way to do that.
You know, thank you for for addressing a lot of the topics in there. Actually, you talked about how by acknowledging the potential for bias and then addressing it in a very structured and methodical way, you try to eliminate or minimize or reduce the bias, and it can have a lot of other positive effects in terms of ensuring social equity, health equity, and a lot of other positive benefits that come out of it. We covered a lot of ground there, Taha, and we're almost at the end of our time here. I do want to ask you a question about the different healthcare bets that Amazon's making. You've got Amazon Care, you've got Alexa voice services, you've got HealthLake, you had talked about comprehensive medical, SageMaker. You've got all of it. Now, how does your practice, the machine learning practice, and how do you support all of these other? Do they all come together under one sort of a consolidated umbrella, or are they all different? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I can only speak about my role within AWS. I mean, AWS. I mean, we build the technologies and the services to help solve a lot of these problems, and from healthcare providers to payers to life science companies and biotech, at all sizes and levels and complexity, whatnot. So our goal is just to build those technologies, and as you can see, the material investment we're making in making machine learning as boring as possible. Anyone should be able to pick it up, but then also really try to kind of break the black box and remove the complexity and the heavy lift for a lot of these a lot of these customers. So healthcare problems are healthcare problems, no matter who's building what for whom. You know, with machine learning and AI, I mean, those are transformation technologies, and we want to be able to give and build them the right way, but also give the right guidance about how they can be built in a responsible way.
Yeah.
And so this is how our approach to it is on the AWS side, and we partner with a lot of healthcare providers and customers to because we see a lot of repeated sort of use cases across the board,
Yeah.
which is enough for us to really understand the heavy lifting and in the first place why we start making those services in the first place.
So would it be fair to say that in some way, even an Amazon Care is an internal customer for some of your services, just like a Beth Israel or a Rush or any of those healthcare providers would be?
I mean, you have to. I can't talk about Amazon Care, but you have to think about, you know, the Amazon Web Services is a cloud provider. Whether that's internal customer is going to use the cloud or an external customer is going to use the cloud. So that's how we will look at it. And then they're going to have a lot of common problems, and that's exciting for us because then we can really think hard about the heavy lifts that they observe, and then be able to really start kind of peeling the onion on those. But what's really exciting in the last few years now is on the AWS side, we're building those purpose-built services pre-trained on the understand medical context, whether that's Amazon Companion Medical, Amazon Transcribe Medical to understand medical transcriptions, Amazon HealthLake to really provide you that scale with indexing and information on patients, and be able to really kind of build these dashboards and cohorts and do these wonderful prediction models, whether that's for operation efficiencies, improving outcome, or reducing biases and closing gaps in care. I mean, I do believe today's world population, 4 billion people around Earth today, don't have access to care. Forget about high quality care.
Right.
And I do believe that AI and technology have to be part of the future that can close access to care and provide more equitable solutions. So innovations in precision medicine, APIs for data interoperability and system interoperability, chatbots, intelligent scribes, those are components can really be part of that solution to bring more equitable care to the world.
Very well said. Well, we're going to have to leave it there for today. It was such a pleasure speaking with you, Taha, and thank you so much for sharing your insights, and all the very best to you and your team.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Patty. It's been fun.